needle tool is going to help. The needle tool is going to help decide the thickness of the bottom of the pot. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I can stop the wheel and I stab down with the needle tool, lower my finger, and when it hits the bottom, I lift up. And the thickness of my needle tool should be about like a pencil thickness, again, or finger thickness. If it's too thick, push down further, okay? Because then that's the thickness that could be on the sides of the wall. If it's way too thin, don't worry about it. We can always fix that later, okay? So about pencil thickness. And so now my wheel speed again, kind of about medium, okay? And now I'm going to widen this pot further, okay? So I'm going to take my left hand, and that's kind of on the outside edge of the wall. And I take my right hand, and I hold the sponge comfortably, and I go down and I pull directly back toward me, okay? And then I ease up pressure, and that further widens the pot, okay? And right now, the bottom floor of the pot, since I widened it out, it's kind of like a V shape, okay, like a bowl. I want it flat, like a letter U. So I'm going to go from the center, whether I use my sponge or a finger, I'm going to go from the center, and I'm going to go to the outside edge. And I'm going to go back to the center, and I'm going to go to the outside edge. And what that's doing is flattening out the floor of the pot. And when I start drawing up the walls, that's going to create more stability, okay? I can also use my sponge, and I'm flattening out the bottom, okay? Flattening out the bottom. If it gets off a little bit off center, I can take my two thumbs and wrap my hands around it and just kind of collar the pot a little bit, and that stabilizes the piece. Again, don't forget, let go gently. This is the most critical part of stabilizing the pot. It's centering the lip. And this again is now kind of like a right-handed operation. So even if you're left-handed, you have to do it this way. I take my left forefinger and thumb, or my middle finger and thumb, and I'm pinching at about 4 o'clock, just about a ½ inch below the lip. And then I come down with my right index finger, and that's centering the lip of the pot. If that's unstable, when I try and draw up the pot, it's going to start shaking. So I just compress and do that. I can also use my sponge. I can, if it's getting wet, if it's dry, get it wet again. Pinch, and then I come over with my sponge, and I just hold firmly, and I let the pot, the rotations of the wheel, center the pot for me. I'm constantly centering the lip. Most of the pieces I fix for students, 99% of them, it's fixed by centering the lip. You could have your piece totally messed up like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start all over. Don't start over. I stop the wheel, I kind of like recenter it a little bit, get it back to its shape. I go back to a medium speed, and now I grab now down a little bit further, and I center the lip. And I just hold firmly, and that recenters it. That bottom part, I'm using my thumb, and again, I'm just re-stabilizing the clay, okay? So again, you're kind of like able to steer the pot. Left hand, I can make it flare out, I can make it flare in. It's just controlling the clay. And so I liken it to kind of just steering a car, okay? You're always in control of the steering wheel. The car isn't steering you, okay? So just, I'm controlling the pot, okay? So now at this point, we're going to draw up the clay. I'm recentering the lip. I'm going to clean off that little outside edge again at the base. And now I'm going to draw up the pot, the walls. The way I do that is I lean to the right, and I use my two middle fingers on my left hand, okay? And I hold the sponge in my right hand, okay? And the reason why at 3 o'clock is because then the clay moves away from you, so you don't get resistance. I never throw the clay on the left-hand side because the clay is going to be going into my hands, and that's why the wheel always goes counterclockwise, okay? Center of the lip again. And I also, to provide stability, I drop my thumb on my inside hand on my outside hand. That creates like a little bridge. Instead of just doing it like that, my hands can shake. But like I said, I'm always supporting one hand with the other. So by just doing something as simple as that, dropping my thumb, that helps support my hand. I compress, and I'm going to use slightly more pressure with my outside hand. And that's going to keep it as a cylinder shape. And I go slowly up the top. My left hand meets the right hand. And when that happens, that's my first pull. I go back and I center the lip, okay? Get your hands wet. If you ever get a lot of clay and slip built on your hands too, just wipe it off on the edge of the bowl. You want your hands relatively clean so you can have a sensitivity to the clay. My left hand, it really is, it's not my fingertips, it's my finger pads right there. So in particular with girls in my class, you need to trim your fingernails, because if it's long, you end up gouging into the clay, okay? So my second pull, I can slow down the speed a little bit now more, okay? Again, don't go rocket speed, it'll spin out of control. Don't go so slowly because you can't keep your hands steady. So just about a quarter speed. And again, I'm going to use more pressure with my outside hand, and as I draw that up, that's keeping it into a cylinder. Left hand meets the right hand. That's my second pull. Center the lip. If I go up too quickly, watch this on the outside, you'll see that spiraling. That means I've gone up too fast, and that's going to make it uneven thickness, and the lip will be thick and thin. If I go very slow and steady, see how I get these nice concentric rings on the clay, kind of gouging it with my fingernail a little bit to emphasize that. And see, now I have these nice concentric rings. That's really moving the clay up and out. I'm going to center the lip again. So notice how many times I keep centering the lip. Now on my third pull, this is about kind of, after 3 or 4 pulls, that finishes a piece. So I compress. Again, see, I can either drop my thumb there. I'm kind of resting my thumb now just closer to the body of the pot on top of my thumb, but my thumb is always touching somehow. It's never just floating there. I'm going to compress, and now I'm going to use even pressure, and that's going to get a nice cylinder shape. And now my outside hand meets my inside hand, and that's my third pull. Center the lip. Everything starts from a cylinder, okay? If I have a cylinder, if I close it off, I'm going to have a bottle. If I open it up slightly, I'm going to have a vase. If I open it up further, I'm going to have a bowl. And if I open it up further, I'm going to have a plate. So everything originates from a cylinder shape, okay? So your first project that I have my students do is a bowl. So an easy way to make the bowl is I'm getting it wet. I'm going to use my right hand as a backboard. I'm going to use the left hand flat, and I'm going to just gently start pushing outwards. And now this is where it's creative. You know, I could stop there. That's kind of like a nice vase shape. I'm going to slowly stretch out the clay. Okay, and again, I always gently release so I don't get that shake. And now, really, this is now just the aesthetics on the bowl, or any pot for that matter. Where do you want to stop? Do I want to flare out the lip a little bit more? That can be a nice addition. Do I want to push out this part more, make it fuller? Again, I'm just using my fingers, now more kind of convex. And I'm pushing out. And that's widening it further. I can push out the lip. Your shaping is really all your left hand pushing out, okay? I'm going to then use my my right hand. I'm going to sponge out any water. I'm flattening out the bottom, okay? And flatten that out, get out the water. And then to remove the piece, I'm going to get a little wire over here. To remove your pot from the bat is I take my wire and I hold it flush and I saw through the first cut. And the reason why I saw through is because if I just come straight across, I might lift up too early and I'll cut through the bottom of the piece, okay? So again, that first cut saws through. Now then, I can go through a couple times. If your piece is big enough, I can just keep it on the bat, and you can see how, demonstrating with the Giffen grip, I can always trim that foot down. If you want to take it off, I can then just put a little bit of water in front of me. I can then take the wire, and now I'm wiring kind of water underneath the pot. It's kind of like hydroplaning, and I'm going to kind of remove this just a little bit so it's smooth, and I push from the bottom, and then I can catch it, and then I can put that away. So that's beginning throwing. Again, some tips just on how to shape the pot, and in another demo we'll make a larger piece. Thanks so much.